Welcome to TA Therapy Ain't Just White, the podcast where therapy meets real talk, representation, and the beautiful chaos of being human. You'll be hearing from 4 transactional analysis trainees from marginalized backgrounds, sharing their journey through training, theory, and life. Whether you're curious about therapy, already into TA, or just want honest conversations about identity and growth, this space is for you. They are here to make psychotherapy more human, more honest, and more inclusive. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome. Welcome back to the podcast. This is TA Therapy Ain't Just White. I'm Mike and I'm joined today for this special part 2 of a previous episode. I'm joined by Wendy and Craig. So let's have a hello from you guys.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
So as I say, this is a part 2. So episode 6, we were talking about our kind of experiences through first year and things that we've kind of picked up and learned and things that have kind of stood out for us as we went through. And there's a couple of really important bits that we didn't get to. So we wanted to kind of hive those off into a separate session. And that's the time that we're going to spend together right now. So we are going to be focusing on, for our chat at this point, to talk about costs around training. So that's costs in terms of time, costs in terms of money, and in terms of relationships and impacts in those areas as well. Yeah. So quite a meaty topic. I think you described it as steak earlier, Craig. I think I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
definitely.
It depends how you like your steak. I usually go for that medium rare kind of steak, but yeah, it's quite meaty. Quite a meaty.
But vegetarians here too, so maybe not a steak, maybe a nice grilled aubergine or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Whatever
nice
your
pumpkin soup.
Yeah, winter warming. Nice. I'll take that. So let's dive in then. Picking up the first topic. So relationships. I think if we start there and just a bit of a lead in. So I think I remember back to the first week in training, that kind of first session when we were all just a bit hesitant and kind of looking around the room and all that kind of stuff and what have I got myself into. And I remember one of the facilitators saying probably several times that TA will change you. And I also remember thinking, are you sure? Really? That's all a bit, a bit woo-woo hippie. Oh, it'll change you. And she was right. I think it does. So I've got to hold my hands up and say that for me, definitely looking back, I feel that there's a shift and a change of development in me and how I kind of see the world and stuff. So how does that kind of land with you guys? What's your experience been of those elements?
Yeah, I think I remember experiencing something similar, or thinking about something similar. I think I was listening to Cornell's 101 videos that you can see on YouTube, and somebody talks about getting married actually, and he says, I wouldn't recommend getting married, doing anything dramatic like moving house or changing jobs or a lot of different things. And I had just literally moved country, moved jobs, and a number of other things. And I was just thinking like, no, I've done all those things. So they should come with a bit of a health warning. So yeah, I think that resonates with me for sure. Or at least there's something you really need to consider. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, it's interesting you even speak about marriage, because I remember for me, it's like weekend 1, workshop 1. I was literally when I got married. And so it was just, it's been, I think if I was going to give it one word, it's transformational in all aspects. I think for self, mainly but then actually even how you relate to the people around you. I think you don't realize just how powerful it becomes having language to understand what goes on internally, or just some of the internal processes. But yeah, it's really, I always say this to my wife and we always laugh about it, and I say, if it wasn't for me being on this course and training as a transactional analysis, I don't think I'd be the husband I am now. And I'm quite aware, yeah, and I'm quite aware of that, because within the last year, with the therapy, with with the workshops, there's a lot of things that I've learned about myself that I didn't know. And once I've learned it, I go back and I have a conversation with her, and I'm like, right, so I spoke with my therapist, and I think this is why I'm like this, and I'm starting to understand this and this, and just being able to then give that language so that actually it helps her to know me as well, why I get to know myself. But it does come at a cost. Interesting enough. But yeah, we can go deeper into it. But I definitely would say it's from my perspective, definitely transformational.
So that sounds like it's coming from your understanding of yourself that you're developing through therapy primarily, or do you think it's through the models and bits like that as well, the actual kind of the academic teaching?
So for me, because I'm quite a practical learner, it has to come first from the therapy. So, and especially because of my job and what I do, I think, some of the things that we then learn in workshop, I experience it within the workplace. So it becomes more alive, because now there's an awareness to be, oh, okay, so this and this is what you were doing. When I'm sitting down with the residents within the home, and we're having conversations about looking at, okay, so why do you think is that beneficial for you? Or is there something else that you can do? All of that, and you start realizing actually you're looking at redecision, you're looking at reparenting. So all of those things then are like, oh, like there's actually names to those things. Whereas before I just, you're just doing it as you go along. But especially I think for the way that I learn, I'm definitely a practical person. So when I got to experience it within therapy, and then experienced it within the workplace, and then coming into workshops, and then we're now starting giving language in regards to, what we're doing, the ego states, the lie scripts, the strokes. So all of that, when you start having the names, you're like, oh gosh, so this is what's happening, and these are why these things are important.
That's about for you, Wendy. How did that kind of resonate?
Yeah, I think for me, because I just come off of doing social work, systemic social work. So, like life script is a thing, but it's not under TA. So, I was quite surprised. I went into TA because I was really interested in script, but learning about it in a different way. Obviously, as a social worker, you do a lot of training around child development, attachment theory. So for me, I think what I do a lot is linking things together and helping make sense how things sit. What I do like about TA is the simple diagrams. I think when I learned in a systemic way some of the same concepts, it was kind of complicated, and I'm not really sure how that would work in a therapy situation, because obviously I wasn't doing therapy. So I've used, some of those basic models, just the parent, adult, child model, and clients have got it straight away. Like they get that very basic understanding. Of course, you're impacted by what happened in your childhood. Of course, you're impacted by what happened with regards to your relationship with your parents. So I really like that about TA, the simple language.
So does that kind of visual nature with the diagrams, and you're absolutely spot on. If you like circles and triangles, then TA is absolutely for you. You can't escape it. Has that kind of helped you understand your relationships with other people, either family, friends, kind of romantic others, that kind of thing?
I suppose I've always been somebody like I said, I've already knew a lot of stuff, but not in the same TA way. But I think once you're embedded on a course, you cannot but help think about it over time. And sometimes I think that can be difficult. I have a friend who's going through like some really difficult, a very close friend who's going through some difficult thing, and you've got to be very careful not to start what's the word? I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know,
Therapizing.
Yeah. I've heard that one before.
got to remember, like, no, this is somebody who's my friend, you know. So I think just being careful when you're with, you know, loved ones and friends, and even at work, like that is not our role in that place and that time, unless the person has through. And just in those two heads, but it's hard because it just sort of takes over your own.
I really feel what you're saying there. That thing about just being able to turn it off, that's a skill in itself. It's so exciting when you dive into this, and I certainly felt this, and just like, oh, I can see all this new stuff now, and I you know, it's like a veil is lifted in a way. You kind of recognize, oh, I see this pattern playing out between me and you here, or kind of watching it happen with other people, and yeah, but not stepping into that to somehow, oh, look, I know a load of stuff now, look at this. And yeah, that's really hard to rein it back. I think that is a skill, an ongoing kind of developmental skill, I think, to find the right time and place for just, you know, when to showcase this stuff. And but you can't stop thinking it. I think that's part of how it changes you, isn't it? Is that recognition of what's happening around you and what you're involved in that you didn't have before. I've certainly found that there are relationships now, say friendships and things like that, that I've taken a step back from, that I've kind of looked at and gone, you know what, I'm not, why are we engaged in this? What is even happening here? And yeah, there's that kind of different perspective on interactions, on transactions, and being able to evaluate that in a way just in real time in your everyday life. And that for me, I think, is where the change has come in that I don't know, not more critical, but just more aware. I think more aware of stuff that's happening, and then I can choose how to interact with that now, you know. And it's not just kind of a passive passenger on a journey through something. Actually, you know what, I'm steering this, and I can make decisions about which way stuff goes, or what I want to invest my energy into. And you know, but I suppose that as well is part of the change, in that we're choosing this journey, we're choosing to stay in it, we're choosing to use these tools and to apply them when we can, kind of in and out of work. And there's a lot of people around us who aren't choosing that. And yeah, Craig, you said about your wife, how you kind of almost kind of debrief with her, it sounds kind of, you know, this is kind of where I am, and you know, and I think that's brilliant. I think that's absolutely beautiful, and it's taking people on that journey, especially your nearest and dearest with, because we will evolve, and the people that we were, that they knew and cherished before, might not necessarily be who we end up being after 4 years of training and then however many long practicing. Yeah, and it's a kind of taking people on the journey with you, and it sounds like, Craig, you're kind of managing to do that in quite a really nice way.
Oh yeah, but don't get me wrong, it came with its challenges, and still comes with its challenges on a day-to-day basis. But I think you mentioned it quite a few times. It's that choice and choosing, because with this and the power of, you know, understanding TA, I think you realize actually just where through childhood experiences where you've ended up not having choices, and you've not been able to have different decisions. You've always just thought actually you've only got one decisions to make based off the childhood experience that you would have had. Whereas actually now it's going back, you know, if you're using even LiveScript, being able to go back and look back, okay, when did you initially start making that decision that you made? You know, why was it that you made that decision? So actually, it's then opening it opens up a whole wide perspective. It changes everything, and you're like, oh wow, actually, so I don't have to react that way. All I just need to do is express what I need, and actually, it changes the whole. I'm stepping outside of script already just by understanding and coming into awareness. And I think what happened with us, I think as soon as I came back from, I think it was like workshop 102 after getting married, started learning, oh, okay, so learning about ego state. Right. You're in your child ego state right now.
How did that go down when you threw that out there?
Yeah, guys, I'll tell you, don't do it. Don't do it. We ended up having that conversation and being like, right, you're not I'm not your therapist. You're not my therapist. Actually, this is a relationship. But I was like, okay. I was like, I really would love for you to go on this journey with me. And I even remember saying it to her, actually. I think I even went into therapy saying to my therapist, I think we should go into couples therapy, like, because this is so enriching and just going on that journey together, because I think you can very easily, because we're constantly in this like month in, month out, and you're in therapy every week, you're constantly developing, you're constantly learning about yourself, constantly challenging. So you can end up feeling like if you're not on that journey together, that one is advancing while the other one is staying the same.
Yeah.
And I guess that's, that's not you don't get that in the TA memo when you're going into it, when you're going into your first, even TA 101, it can say to you, yeah, you will change and this will change you, but actually it's about the people around you as well. Are they your support network, those that are around you, are they coming on that journey with you? Because if they don't, you can end up actually growing apart rather than growing together.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think that's why I really like sort of systemic work, because if one person changes, it impacts everybody. So yeah, I think that's something that is good to think about. And maybe they need to talk about it more on the TA courses for anybody to think about it. It's a very specific way of thinking about life, I think, that it's perhaps a little bit different from some of the other courses. And also I think about, like, with your siblings, we're all from this, because we do all this talk about parent, a child, and then if you've got siblings, how does that work, the dynamics? It's a lot. But my therapist, which I think is a good thing to remember, is that we're all born to different parents. I think if you remember that, that's quite helpful.
That's true. So do you mean that even, say, I've got a younger brother, younger sister, but actually their experience of my parents will be different to mine, because my parents were different, having raised me and the situations we're in and all that kind of thing. So actually everyone's start is unique, isn't it? Everyone's background is unique. I see what you're saying, yeah. And
then it helps you sort of not say things like, oh, but you remember, like, because their memories are different, their experiences were different. So you only have control and you can only really dig on your own, focus more on yourself, and obviously relationship with the adult. But yeah,
I think it's that kind of assuming that you have the same view, isn't it? That everybody has that same kind of outlook, even with the similar backgrounds, and even when you've been together as friends, partners for ages, it's all different. I've tried to. I had a similar experience actually to you, Craig, in terms of there's definitely a point I remember when my wife just looked at me and went, just stop, just turn it off, just stop. Just stop what? I just went, just stop. I'm sorry, okay, I didn't really realise, and then we had a really kind of fabulous conversation around, how I am with her and that kind of stuff, and the differences in me. And this was quite early on. This is probably kind of week 3 or 4, something like that, maybe kind of even 2 or 3. But just when that excitement and those kind of doors are opening more, and you see all this stuff, and you're trying to, I'm not even trying to use it. It's just there, and it's like, well, just switch it off, put it away for a bit, just come back as a husband, and you know, all that kind of stuff. But then from that, I asked her to read what's it called? Counselling for Toads.
Oh yeah.
And a couple of the other kind of bits, and she proofreads my essays and that kind of stuff as well. So she's involved in that process, and something like Counselling for Toads is super accessible, and it just paints a really nice picture in a familiar, easy way of what TA is in the real world and how it looks and how it affects people. And it's not too thick, and it's not academic, and it's based on Wind in the Willows. There's familiar touch points there for a bit, and I think that really helped her kind of get a view as to what I was involved in and what that would then start to look like. And I think if you can find that way just to kind of to take people along, and it's going to look different for all of us. I think that's super important to keep those connections.
Yeah, it's really important just having, I always call it's like a scaffolding. So having that support network around you when you're on this journey, because it can feel like it's isolating, because you're continuing to doing this internal work and then challenging your own script or challenging your own self-beliefs. And you need a support network of people around you that can champion you, because otherwise, it can just end up feeling like, yo, I'm just going through this on my own. Like, is it just me having to do these changes? I remember one of my friends before, I had a catch up with one of my friends, and we was just chatting about life and how we're getting on. And he was like, Craig, I'm tired. I'm tired of just having to look inside and change it. And I said, right, I get it, but this is life, it's growth. If you can look internally and see and make different decisions that will better your future, I mean, what more can you ask?
It'll be interesting to see where we are in year 4. To reflect back, won't it?
Means we'll have this to come back to.
Re-listen and just kind of see, that's it. That was before we all got divorced and then moved house and all this stuff. Oh yeah, no, I remember that. Shall we move through to talk about another aspect here? So we kind of opened there with relationships and that kind of change in self and interactions with people, but then there's some real kind of tangible things financially about this. TA, I think in particular, has some quite sizable financial implications that it's possible to not quite be aware of when you get going, that just become more evident as you go, and you've got to kind of maybe choose and manage things. I know, Wendy, do you want to kind of speak to this for a little bit?
Yeah, I think I hadn't really thought about the cost so much. I thought I'd done research, but upon reflection, I don't think I did. Like, I didn't realize, I think one of the things about TA that is quite different is you have that foundation year. So obviously that's something that you have to pay for. There's the cost of supervision, which I don't know about you guys, roughly around maybe like 50, 60 for most people, I think, maybe even more perhaps in London. Then you've got like your therapy, again, around the same price. Finding your own placements, you do get support in TA, but because it's not linked with a university, some people may struggle with that, whereas perhaps if you're in a big city that's got a university, it might even counselling program within the university that you can access. So I think for TA, there may be a lot of extra costs that people haven't thought about. And then I suppose it's just like we've just been talking about our lives, like holding down a job to, be able to afford to pay the bills and put gas in the car and feed your kids. But you've also got your placement hours to do. So I think perhaps that's why, TA is not as accessible to people working class, people from single parents may struggle. Like it's a hard, heavy lift, isn't it, really? It perhaps is not, it's a bit more exclusive, maybe. It's a bit more of an exclusive club than perhaps going via a university route. And it's something people realistically have to think about and do their research. Yeah. How about you guys?
I think you're right. I think there's something about the way that TA is structured and the routes in make it a bit exclusionary, unfortunately, that you need to have a certain level of either kind of personal flexibility and financial flexibility to consider entering TA. Certainly, you think about a lot of, well, I mean, the elements you listed there, even before that, there's a TA 101 that is a requirement that you do before you even start on the course. And that's a couple of £100 before you start for like a 2-day thing. And then, let's say the cost of training at master's level, not at kind of, bachelor's degree level, not at kind of level 4. If you want to say get into counselling, you can do an A-level equivalent in counselling, like a level 3, level 4, and kind of work your way up through these points to get to a point where you can happily practice, and that's perfectly acceptable as the BACP, all this kind of stuff. It's all kind of fully laid out as a pathway, and that is a lower cost route into the profession. Obviously it's a different route and it's a different modality and all this kind of stuff as well, typically. But I certainly have had people say to me, why are you doing a master's, why are you doing a TA master's at all? So before I started, I did a level 2 counselling course because I wasn't sure about going back into academia, for like 30 years after having kind of finished education and stuff like that. And actually, was I sure I really wanted to do it? Was a bit of a fantasy thing. So I did that, and that was 6 months GCSE equivalent in the kind of UK, kind of 16-year-old educational level. And that was through a college nearby. And then they offered the kind of the next level 3, the level 4. And then at that point, you'd be qualified and you could go into private practice. You could be employed in the NHS and other places. And yeah, I definitely had the conversation. Are you going to continue with this? So I said, well, actually, no, I'm thinking of going to do TA. So that sounds great. And then you talk about it a bit more and you go, yeah, it's how many £1,000 a year for 4 years to do this. And you go, oh, okay, well, that's the total cost of this 4-year journey is your 1 year of things. Like, why? And so I think you've got to ask yourself, is this the route that you want to go down? Can you sustain that? And naturally by that, there's a filter point there, isn't there? And you think about kind of societally, you think about culturally, and then that leads to potentially a certain type of person or a certain level of privilege coming through into TA, becoming kind of the psychotherapist, TA psychotherapist of the future. Although we are all quite varied, actually there is a level of accessibility and privilege that we all enjoy to a certain extent that even allows us to come in and start this journey that a lot of people don't have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you really summed it up well, Mike. Like, I remember when I came into this, I didn't really think too much about what it was that I was going into. I just remember going to the open day, and then I went in there wanting to go for the person-centered, but then I heard about TA, and I think it just spoke to me in a way that the other modalities didn't. But I never actually really thought about what I was getting into or the cost. And I remember just going to my wife one day, and we're actually going to her parents at the time. I just turned around, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and I'm going to become a psychotherapist. She looked at me and she was like, how are you going to do that? We're getting married in October. So this was like February. So she was like, well, we're getting married in October. Like, it's going to cost, like, TA is going to cost this amount of money. And foundation, yeah, you have to self-fund it as well. I remember just looking, I was like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but yeah, it's going to. So it's for me, it was like one of those things that I jumped straight into the deep end without really thinking. And, by grace, managed to be able to actually then swim. But that might not be everyone's story in that sense, especially financially. So I'd always say, actually, yeah, look into it, actually, because it will cost. And I think it's not just financial costing, but it will cost yourself as well. It's a sacrifice essentially, because you're having to do the personal work, whether that's going to be through therapy, going into workshops. If you missed a workshop, that's going to cost as well, because you have to make up the hours. Everything continues to add up. When you go into year 2, you're having to do supervision alongside weekends, alongside, placement. All of this is a cost. So actually, if you don't think about the plans ahead, it may end up being at a point where, you get onto that train and you're like, oh gosh, I'm really stuck now. But yeah, and I think it costs, that costing, I think it ties in hand as well with relationships, and that concept that I was speaking about, having that scaffolding and good network and people supporting you around you and people championing you, because, there's times in which it will get hard, it will get dark, in a sense of like, listen, I know for my own journey, I'm juggling like 5 or 6 different roles at the minute in terms of work, but it's the people that I have around me that keep me going. And and that within itself, it's a cost, because they might not have as much time with me as possible, but they're understanding, actually, it's not always going to be like this. It's just a season. But yeah, I would 100% still say, like, this is probably the best decision that I've made in my life, in order to be on this journey and to continue on this journey. And I hope for those guys and anyone listening, actually, like, it's an investment in yourself that you're willing to go into. But at the end of, when you finish those 4 years, the type of person that you're going to be is going to be very impactful for the clients that you're working with.
I think if we can just also link it like to culture and diversity, I think that that's something that maybe you kind of could look at, because from my experience of like being at a conference or just looking at different workshops I've been to, they're not as diverse as perhaps they would be if it was more accessible at different points for people. So I think that is something, we may be in a unique part of the UK, but I think in general, if you look at, because it is so expensive, so naturally it's not accessible to a broader range of people. And if the organization wants to stay fresh and culturally relevant, then that might be something that they do want to look at. I don't know.
I think that was one of the themes, wasn't it, in the international conference, was kind of recognizing that deficit or the barriers to entry. So I think credit to them there, but equally it's, well, what's happening about that? How are we, kind of, what's the reaction to that? What is changing? Because it's not just the tangible stuff that we've talked about, the actual fees, courses, and the therapy and things like that. It's all the peripheral bits as well, isn't it? It's the travel, it's maybe kind of travel costs, trains, that kind of thing, hotels, and kind of books and conferences. Just talks about conference there. That's not an inexpensive weekend and stuff to go to, that kind of thing. Different events and CPDs and things like that. So there's kind of almost kind of hidden costs, isn't there, in there? But you touched on something earlier, Craig. You kind of said about the first year not being funded. I think for us, we kind of had that foundation year and then 3 years of master's degree after that. And obviously then the final 3 years, you can apply for a student loan or student finance or whatever it's kind of called now, assuming you qualify for that is the assumption. And there's also, does it actually cover the course fees, let alone all the other stuff around the edges? And I chatted to someone the other day, I can't apologies, son, I can't remember who it was, but they can start talking about childcare. So you know what, I'd not considered that. My kids are old enough now. My wife's there and stuff like that. So actually, we can juggle things around with us. But that was something that I hadn't even considered as a financial and an emotional cost of sorting these things out. And we've not even touched on having to change jobs or think about reducing hours and things to make the time and space to actually do the course. I think, Craig, you've kind of changed things. I know, Wendy, you've kind of shifted your job about a bit as well. What's that look like for you guys?
It's difficult. I think that's what I was saying earlier. Like, I do think it is quite restrictive to working class, lower middle class, single parents. I think that's where you get a lack of diversity within TA, and then you're not going to, I think also we haven't talked about the material as well. Like, is that accessible? If it doesn't speak to you, if it doesn't address the community where you live and work, is it relevant? Is that exclusionary? You have to do a lot of juggling to make it work. It's a struggle. I'm not gonna lie, making it work. But I just hadn't anticipated how difficult it would be. And I suppose it's also for other people on other types of courses, I do think there is that element as well. Whatever psychotherapy course you're on, you do have to do placements. I think the institute makes it a little bit more inaccessible. Like, for example, you talk about childcare, perhaps at a university, they may have childcare. Even, in terms of people who might need wheelchair access, just as an example. Some of the institutes are in very old buildings and not necessarily accessible. The library access, whereas in a university, you've got access to a library at various other times. So yeah, I think because TA is pretty much in these very small institutes, sometimes it can feel a little bit insular and exclusionary, but that's why we're here, to try and broaden it a little bit and share our experience and invite the people to the space. So, yeah.
I think so. I think it's also important on that point to feel that you can speak up and ask for what you need in those spaces. And whether it's a TA or any other kind of course or any other kind of modality or whatever, if you don't feel that you have somewhere to turn to help you address these costs for some kind of support, then that's a really serious issue, just full stop, isn't it? And I feel that there are avenues for conversations. The solutions may be limited or may not be as full as you would like, but I think it is something that can be discussed. And I would certainly urge people, if they are struggling for whatever reason and finding challenges and barriers, to have those conversations. And if you don't feel able to, then that's a whole different and kind of set of challenges right there, isn't it?
It was interesting. I think there was something that Wendy mentioned, and I just got this like little spark in my head, even when we're talking about culturally and investing in cost, especially when we're talking about the whole concept of TA ain't just white. When you're looking at like Black and marginalized communities, how much are they willing to actually pay out to go to therapy? Do you know what I mean? That's a separate conversation within itself. So could you imagine them thinking, oh, let me go pay out to become a psychotherapist, let alone, push it a bit further and put the boat out a bit deeper? But and I think this is why I love what we're doing, because it's conversations like this that I'm hoping whoever will listen gets encouraged and being like, actually, let me invest in myself, whether that's going to be going through therapy, whether that means actually let me explore and find out what is TA about. Can I make something of this? Can I grow with something like this? Because in my years of living, and I'm just 31, I don't think I ever heard anyone from my culture or anyone that's been Black championing and saying, actually, it's okay to go into therapy. It's actually an investment in yourself. Or hearing someone that's actually saying, oh no, I want to become a psychotherapist. I remember here, I don't even know what psychotherapy was. Or, I just remember hearing it and I was like, is this thing even real? It went until I was at church and, one of my one of the youth people that we go to, her mom, she was like, you should speak with my mom. I think you guys would get on really well. And we just happened to have a conversation one Sunday. And I was just chatting to her about what I do for work and my passion for working with, people that are autistic, got learning disability, mental health. And then she was like, oh, and I was like, what do you do yourself? So she was like, oh, I'm studying to become a psychotherapist. I remember, I don't know if you guys know that image of, is it Macaulay Culkin when he Home Alone and he was like, honestly, I kid you not, my jaw dropped and hit the floor when she said I'm studying to become a psychotherapist. And I was like, that exists? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So she sent me all the details about what it was and I started looking into it. And if it wasn't for that conversation, I wouldn't be here. But that didn't come from, someone of my background.
I was going to say, so why is that? Why has our faces not been represented with counselling and psychotherapy? And we are a minority. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head right now, but we are a very, very small percentage, regardless of what modality that you study. And so I think what you're talking about, Craig, is really important. Like, why was that not seen as a reality for people like us, who may often be the majority in certain communities who are in counselling or who are going through, say, social services? You might have the clients be the majority people of colour, but the therapists or the counsellors or the social workers are not. So I think that's interesting. Not the face of the therapist.
I guess that's a conversation within itself. But I think if I bring it back, if I can answer it in short from my own experience, I don't think it's talked about enough within our community. It's not. I can't imagine us going, even for an example, Christmas is coming up, holidays are coming up. How many of us would sit at a table and be like, actually, oh yeah, by the way, guys, did you know I'm actually once a week and I'm having therapy? And I'm speaking to someone, like, as normal as that is.
There's a taboo, probably more so within our communities maybe than other kind of, the wider white community, where it's maybe more mainstream, more acceptable somehow. I don't know. Just those dinner table conversations, just the acceptability of it is limited at best, isn't it?
Yeah. And, when you conjure up the image of the therapist, if you're designing, like, if you look at YouTube, just Google on YouTube, you're not going to see therapists who look like us. They're not going to show up. Not to say they don't exist, but they are in a minority.
Yeah. Agree. But that is definitely a topic for another day to dig into. I was thinking about the cost, and we've touched on some of this stuff here, but I just wanted to kind of, I suppose, quickly just talk a little bit about the time commitment that obviously impacts on family and stuff like that as well, but and jobs and pieces. But that's a really important aspect, I think, for anyone to consider, because that knocks onto so many different things. Have you got the time, not only for the weekends and the study itself? I say weekends because it is in where I'm studying, but I know the courses are weekdays. Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, things like that. So, how does that time work with a full-time job? How do you find the time for therapy, for supervision in an already busy life? How do you find the time and the focus for essays, for reading, for development? All of those things, I think, again, it's not that it's underplayed, I just don't think it's highlighted. And I think it's important that we just spend a little bit of time talking about time.
Yeah.
I think it gets back to that whole exclusionary aspect that who stereotypically ends up on these courses because people who've got time, because there's only so many hours of the day, we cannot change that. That is a reality, so it's not easy. Can't make more time. So other things have to be cut to make it work.
Yeah. If I kind of take a step back and I look at the people on my course from a really kind of high level view, we're all quite similar in kind of, I suppose, life stages, that we're at a point moving from one career to another, and we have a level of stability that affords us some control over our time. Yes, there are things to juggle. Absolutely, practicalities, things need juggling. But I think, if I was, because I'm 50 next year, so.
Ooh.
I know, I don't look it, do I?
No, you don't.
You know what? I moisturise. That's another tip. Moisturise, fellas.
Don't worry, I might pop out your cake.
But I think about when I was 20, something like that. Could I have found the time to do this and do a job and pay for my flat and all of that kind of thing? I absolutely couldn't. It's only where I am in life now that I'm able to kind of be master of some of that stuff.
I think that is the thing about the institute again versus university. Thinking of some of the other people I've met on placements, the range of ages has been much more diverse because it's a little easier if you're on a university course to. I'm just thinking of someone I just met on placement recently, just in their 20s, doing a master's in integrative psychotherapy. It's easier to make it work. So there's definitely, again, something very different about TA institutes, which may appeal. It actually may be an advantage for some people. I think that's what I initially thought. I thought the small space, the moving from one career to another, I thought this actually would be more nurturing of what I needed than perhaps a larger university course. So there's disadvantages and advantages depending on where you are in life, I suppose.
I was thinking along the same lines of what you just mentioned towards the end, and actually how much of time, in a sense of age and maturity, plays a massive factor into becoming a psychotherapist. And I say that actually coming into our workshop, where I think I might actually be the youngest. I mentioned this before. I actually think I might be the youngest within the group, and that's at like what, 31. So I remember when I was at university, I'm thinking, did I ever meet anyone that says I'm studying to become a psychotherapist? I think even the study and the course of itself, it's so countercultural. I couldn't imagine, the weekends that we have or the workshops that we have. I couldn't imagine being in that. For me, being in my 20s, when I looked at how much I love partying and going out and having that kind of student life and trying to study this at the same time, I would have been wrecked. I would have been, because this is a lot of thinking. It's a lot of internal processing. It's a lot of looking internally. So could you have imagined trying to juggle that while doing, while studying to become a psychotherapist, being at uni, that uni lifestyle? It takes a lot of discipline. I'll be honest, in regards to actually being onto the course full time or going onto the course doing it part time. And decisions have to be made essentially about, you know, how you're going to invest in yourself, invest in the course, and actually, yeah, committing yourself to it. So the time aspect of it, yeah, definitely is a massive thing because you're gonna have to do placements, you're gonna have to do therapy, you're gonna have to do supervisions. There's there's gonna be conferences. So all of that is within your life. You're gonna have to find a way of making time to be able to do those things.
I think it depends. I'm thinking like I on one hand, you may have more time if you're younger. I mean, I was a street outreach worker in America. I had lots of time. I wasn't in a relationship, no kids, no, I had a lot of freedom, so I could
Mm.
develop whatever I wanted to because I had no ties to anything. So I think it just depends where you're at in life, but it's going to take time. You may have more time when you're younger, but you may not have the life experience.
Yeah.
Whereas you're older, you've got more life experience with different types of relationships, um, and you've got more money probably. But those relationships, then you have maybe less time. So it just all depends, doesn't it? Also depends, perhaps I was thinking like if you want to work with young people, I think there is an advantage sometimes being younger. I think our course is perhaps looking at expanding options for working with young people. That's something I would definitely be interested in. I think it just depends. Everybody's different, aren't they? Everyone has
Mm.
different levels of maturity, but time, yeah, is a huge topic.
Yeah. I like that. I always think about when I went into one of my placements where I work with uh young people, 16 to 18. And there was one day we had supervision, and I remember looking down on how I was dressed. And I had my baseball cap on, I had a baggy top, like my trousers thingies that I wear, and you know, some New Balance trainers. And I remember just sat there and I was like, I don't look like your typical therapist. And I remember just having to do like a group process on that, and I was like, it's a bit weird. I don't look like your typical therapist. And then funny enough as well, not having many, therapists who are black essentially. And I was like, this is really, we're changing a whole narrative here. Like
Just
of
just the
what
fact that you sat there and thought, I don't look like a therapist, just speaks volumes, doesn't it? Speaks volumes. Yeah. If we can all of us just kind of bring our authentic selves to this, to psychotherapy, make it more accessible just by being visible. If you can see it, you can be it. I'm a really strong believer of that. And, we are, we're demonstrating that, yeah, this is an option. This is a thing that you can access. This is a thing that you can be and do. This is a skill and a benefit that you can bring to your communities, that you can bring to other people. And yeah, I don't think there is a type of therapy. I think it's a stereotype of what a therapist is. We touched on it earlier, didn't we? What does that look like? I'm sure we would all probably draw quite a similar picture as to what we think that looks like. But that is absolutely none of us. And so hopefully we can begin to change those perceptions. But I think that about brings us to time. I think that about brings us to time. For this
I like
topic.
what you did there.
Any final thoughts just to wrap things up before we close things down for this session?
I don't know. I just want to continue encouraging our listeners. Like, if you really feel it within your heart that actually this might be calling to you, just step out, invest in yourself, go for it. And you don't know where this journey is going to take you, but along that journey, you will change, you will develop, and you will impact those around you. And who doesn't want to be in a world where everyone is impacted positively? So yeah,
Very
that's
good.
me.
And I would say, if you want to find out a little bit more about TA, you don't have to do a whole masters. There is other stuff out there. Perhaps just taking that TA 101. That gives you a really good overview of what TA is about. And some really interesting references, some research. So even if you're doing an integrative course or another type of course, you can still access TA 101, which is a really good rundown. Everything about transactional analysis.
I would echo that. You can dip your toes in, I think, with those kind of bits. I think for me, I would say take your time to do your research and just think about how you exist now, how you live now, and maybe what you might need to adjust as you move through the course, because it's a fantastic thing to do. And if you can anticipate maybe some of those challenges ahead, or at least be aware of them, the better you'll be as and when you need to deal with this stuff. But I think, just take your time, do your research, as you would do with anything. You wouldn't jump in and buy a car, just walk up and buy the first one. Spend your time, and it's, if you go down this route, it's well worth it. Absolutely well worth it. So brilliant. Well, thank you very much, guys, for the time this week. As we say, this is part 2 of podcast number 6. So if you've just joined us for this one, please do go back and pick up the first part of pod number 6. Can't quite remember what we covered there, but it was all fabulous, I absolutely assure you. So it's well worth going back to have a listen to. We will be back again in another session. Yes, another great episode coming up. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Brilliant. Bye. So I shall say goodbye from me, and I'll hand over to Wendy and Craig to say goodbye from them.
All right. Yeah.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Always a pleasure. Look after
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to TA Therapy Ain't Just White. We hope something in today's episode made you feel seen, curious, or just a little more connected. Whether you're a trainee, a therapist, or just therapy curious, you belong in this space. Join the conversation by following us on socials or dropping us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and stay you.